Just going to give a few minutes for the people to start joining in.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We are live in all the platforms now, so I think we can start now. Okay, so hello, salam, and good afternoon, everyone. Please give me 5 minutes to introduce myself, our guest, as well as provide you with some important information regarding today's webinar. So I am Mohammed Alim, the CEO of IBFNet Group, and I'd like to welcome you all to the first of 10 webinars in our Awqaf Management series by Dr. Hisham Dafterdar. Today, he'll be taking you through the Sharia and legal issues for Awqaf. Now, readers of IBFNet blogs will be very familiar with Dr. Hisham as he has contributed a number of Waqf-focused blogs for us. He is widely known for his immense contribution to the Awqaf sector. He is currently based in Bahrain and serves as a consultant, partner, board member, and advisor to many organizations, which include the International Institute of Islamic Waqf, Awqaf Australia, Awqaf New Zealand, and National Awqaf Foundation of Canada. He joined the Jeddah-based Islamic Development Bank in 1989 and held senior positions in the Treasury and Islamic Financial Services departments. He is a qualified CPA and has graduated from Curtin University, Australia. Over more than 2 decades, Dr. Hisham has been instrumental in the development of Awqaf sector and Waqf properties. He has delivered and published a number of research papers and articles on Awqaf and Islamic finance. And he has also served as a discussant and panelist in international conferences and seminars. Some extra information regarding the webinar, since this is the first webinar in the series. As always, our webinars will be available on YouTube, but unlike the previous webinars, this webinar is being live streamed to YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So as soon as this webinar is over, it will be available automatically on the platforms. As mentioned in our registration page, all attendees of today's webinar will receive a shareable and verifiable certificate with a unique ID, and attendees of all 10 webinar sessions will get an additional certificate from Netversity, which is our e-learning platform. Speaking of Netversity, I'd like to take this opportunity to announce the official launching of the Netversity platform. You can visit the platform at netversity.io and explore all the courses that we have on offer right now. By next year, Netversity will be home to more than 50 courses, which will be developed by us as well as our partners. You can view all of the existing and upcoming courses on the Netversity homepage. After this webinar is over, we will be launching our brand new certified Halal Business Analyst course on the platform, and we hope that this course will be of benefit to all of you. It is a comprehensive course diving deep into the multifaceted world of halal. Whether you're looking to certify a product, understand the consumer mindset, or grasp the intricacies of halal policy and regulation, this course is tailored to provide you with the essential knowledge and the tools to do just that. Now, coming back to the webinar, if you have any questions for Dr. Hisham, you can send them via chat on the platforms that you're watching this webinar in. And if they are relevant to today's webinar and if we have the time for it, we will address them towards the end. With that being said, I'm pleased to hand over the session to Dr. Hisham. Dr. Hisham, I believe you're already sharing the screen, so maybe you can just start up.
Thank you very much, Brother Alim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Yep.
Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Brothers and sisters, thank you very much for being interested in this seminar. And inshallah, we will go through a number of issues concerning Awqaf. I will start with this Sharia and legal issues about Awqaf and why I joined Sharia and legal. Actually, because Awqaf are regulated by two main codes. They're regulated, first of all, by Sharia. And Sharia is, as we all know, is the sacred Islamic law that forms part of the religious ordinances regarding worship, rituals, morals, and above all, also human relations. Sharia is based, as we all know, on the interpretations of the Holy Quran and the Hadith. The Hadith, that is the sayings and the practices of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sharia guides our behavior, values, practices, and relationship of Muslims among themselves and among others. Sharia is considered divine and inviolable. Violable, it means it should not be violated or infringed. Man-made laws, on the other hand, are legislations which are compiled with due reference to Sharia in respect of Awqaf, and also to the prevailing customs, the traditions, and the social values. These values are mundane, and the law can change with time. Sharia doesn't change, but these laws can change with time and with the changes of circumstances. So we'll proceed. This is about the title. Now, we come to the basic of charitable giving in Islam. There are many options, and the three important ones are, we have the infaq, the compulsory, and the voluntary. As an introduction to this, I would say, first of all, Islam views all money as God's money, and it is a trust from Allah to mankind. So earning money legitimately is considered a pious act, as indeed also spending money wisely is a pious act. Now, hoarding, stinginess, greed are all frowned upon in Islam. On the other hand, charitable giving is actively encouraged. Several different categories of charitable giving are defined in Islam. The three most important are infaq. Infaq means in Arabic is spending. Zakat, which is the third pillar in Islam, and the voluntary donation, which comprised of sadaqah and waqf, which we are discussing now. So according to the tenets of Sharia, all types of charitable giving have their standards. First of all, what are these standards which apply to all of them? They must be, first of all, by the way or in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are spending, according to our belief and to our Islamic faith teachings. And secondly, the giving must be of something valuable and which has been legitimately earned. I cannot say, all right, I acquire money illegitimately and then I donate it. So this is, there are two contradictory acts, and therefore this will not be acceptable. So, and number three, that the giver or the donor should not demand or expect a reward in this world. Because if you expect a reward, it means you are not spending by way of Allah, you are buying something. You are buying reputation, you are buying loyalty, you are buying anything else. So charitable giving must be done without any expectation of a reward in this world. And the other thing about giving, there should be no references or reminders or boasting or even humiliating remarks should be directed to the recipient during or after the donation is given. Any such act will render the charity without a noble value, and it will definitely be rewardless by Allah. So, infaq is an Arabic word meaning spending, but it also carries the sense of doing so by way of charity. The word infaq is mentioned in the Quran, and it appears in a number of verses in the imperative tense, which means anfiqu, spend, meaning to spend and to pay. Infaq is an important concept relevant to Islamic economics. Islam prohibits hoarding and encourages spending. Why I say, Islamic economics? Because you see, Western economics is based on what? On saving, investment, and this. You see, in Islam, Islamic economics is based on spending money. Let the money circulate amongst people, not hoarding. So the first obligation of a Muslim is to provide the necessities of life, such as food, clothes, shelter for himself and for his dependents. A Muslim is also liable to spend on his needy relatives and poor neighbors. A Muslim is also encouraged to spend on his community's social welfare. One verse in the Quran which can be cited, Allah says, وَاتَّبِعْ فِي مَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ and seek with the wealth which Allah has bestowed on you the ultimate abode of the hereafter. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا and do not neglect your share from this world. وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ and you do good as Allah did good to you, and seek not mischief in the land. This is an ayah in the Quran in Surah Al-Qasas. The second giving in Islam is compulsory. It's zakat. Zakat is an Arabic word also that means, zakat means purification. So the payment of zakat, it means you are purifying your wealth. Zakat is, as I said, is the third of 5 pillars on which the religion of Islam is founded. This makes it an act of worship and mandatory for adult and sane Muslim who reach the minimum level of wealth, nisab, and is payable, as we all know, at the rate of 2.5% of zakatable property. The recipients of zakat are called the asnaf, and there are 8 of them mentioned in the Quran. As-sadaqatu lil-fuqara, for the poor, wal-masakin, the needy, wal-amilin alayha, those who are working on it, wal-mu'allafati qulubuhum, and those who are new entrants to Islam, wa fil riqab, and those that are to be freed from slavery, wal-gharimin, those that are heavily in debt, wa fi sabilillah, by way of God. These are the asnaf of zakat. So zakat is to be payable to those 8 categories of people. Waqf, on the other hand, waqf and sadaqah are not obligatory like zakat. They are voluntary, and they are not confined to any finite list of purposes as zakat is. The variety of purposes and spending of waqf are beyond computation. Awqaf covers a wide range of social, economic, and environmental matters, and it includes education, healthcare, social services, and even recreation. The legitimacy of the Waqf, the evidence from the Holy Quran. Actually, in the Quran, there is no specific mention of the word Waqf. The word Waqf does not appear in the Quran, in the Holy Quran. But there are many verses that encourage and motivate Muslims to donate, upon which Muslim jurists base their interpretation on the legitimacy of the Waqf. And Allah commands Muslims to spend for His sake from what He has granted by way of righteousness. And Allah says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا شفاعة والكافرون هم الظالمون. It says, O believers, spend of what we have provided you before there comes a day when there will be no buying or selling, nor will be friendship or intercession be of any avail. Indeed, those who disbelieve are the wrongdoers. And another verse which says, and you will not attain righteousness unless you spend of what you cherish most. And this ayah has, when it came, many of the Prophet companions, the Sahaba, started donating Waqf from whatever, they like most. You see, the asset that you cherish most is the most acceptable by Allah. Just as an aside, we all know the story of Qabil and Habil, the sons of Adam. Allah accepted from one but did not accept from the other. Why? Because one gave the best he has, the other one did not. He donated something which, was excess, or he did not. So, and that really resulted at the end, in one brother murdering the other, because Allah accepted from one just because he donated the best of what he has. So, at the heart of Islamic financial behavior lies care for others. The wealthy have the moral obligation to support the needy, and the Waqf is voluntary, a charitable endowment. Voluntary means, if you don't do it, you will not be punished, and if you do it, you will be rewarded. The Waqf is also is being encouraged by the Prophet ﷺ. The hadith and the authenticated record of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. One of the hadith, he says, when a man dies, this is always cited, this hadith, he says, when a man dies, all of his acts come to an end except for three things. One is recurring charity, or knowledge by which people benefit, or a pious offspring or son who prays for him. Now, Muslim jurists interpreted recurring or ongoing charity, which is sadaqah jariyah, as being the Waqf itself. Another hadith narrated by Ibn Umar, that Umar ibn al-Khattab sought the advice of the Prophet ﷺ in regard to a piece of valuable property which he acquired in Khaybar. The Prophet advised him, if you like, you may hold the property and give away its produce as sadaqah jariyah. So Sayyidina Umar made the property inalienable, means it cannot be sold or inherited or gifted, and it will be devoted and its produce to the poor of his relatives and to others in the way of Allah and to others who are in need. So the Waqf is encouraged both in the Quran and in the practices and sayings of the Prophet ﷺ. Now we come to the components for a valid waqf. What makes a waqf valid? Now, there are, as you can see, there are 5 main components required for a valid waqf. These are the waqif. The waqif means the founder of the waqf. The mawquf. The mawquf is the property that is donated, which is an asset. And the mawquf alayh, these are the beneficiaries of the waqf. The mutawalli, or the nazir, the trustee and the manager who manages the waqf. And also the waqf deed itself. Now the waqif, we go back, the waqif is the founder of the waqf. Now he or she, the waqif must be an adult. He should be sane. I mean, if somebody is not fully or mentally capable, or he, is insane or irrational, or, he cannot be, a waqif, because he is not, he doesn't know what he's doing. And therefore, the waqif must be aware of what he is doing, and that the waqif must have the legal ownership of the asset he donates. I cannot make a waqf of somebody else's property. The founder can also be, the waqif can also be a group of people. This is like, a shared waqf, like people will donate into a waqf fund, so they'll all be, waqif for the same waqf. So they can collaborate in establishing one waqf. The waqif can also be a juristic person eligible from a legal and Sharia perspectives. Now, some people say, many scholars, they said, okay, a juristic person can be a waqif, although, one will argue, you say, okay, if the waqf is for thawab, will a company also be given thawab? I mean, but because a company, let's say a company, when a company is establishing a waqf, is it establishing the waqf really for the sake of Allah? Or is it really to look good in the eyes of society? Are they purchasing, is it by way of, promotion? Anyway, we will, this is a debatable point about the real legitimacy of, the donation or the establishment of a waqf by a juristic person. Although it's not to be discouraged, because anything by way of social spending is really encouraged in Islam. The mawquf, what is the mawquf? The mawquf is the waqfiyya, or the waqf property. This is the donated asset that constitutes the corpus of the waqf. The waqf assets can be cash or other liquid assets such as shares or sukuk, or they can be fixed assets such as land, buildings, or agricultural property, or they can be intangible assets of value such as royalties, patent rights, intellectual property, all of these. And now these days also we have digital assets, maybe the cryptocurrencies and so on. Anything of value can be also acceptable as a waqf, so long as it has value and that value can be utilized. Now the waqf property must be specific. You cannot say, I'm making a waqf one of my houses. I have 10 houses, but I'm making one of them. I did not specify, so the waqf must be specific. You must specify, and it should be well defined exactly what you are donating. The property should be freehold, unencumbered. That means it has no, no rights of us on the property. Or like, if you have a house which is under mortgage, and you say, okay, I'm making that a waqf. Well, you cannot, because the mortgagee has rights over it, and he can sell it. So you cannot say, I'm making that a waqf. And you cannot also make a property a conditional, say, okay, I'm going to make a waqf if my daughter marries, because she's been in the house, and you cannot make that. These conditions are, or I'll make a waqf if my mother. These are nazar, which is something else completely. So the waqf cannot be held on such things. And also the property, this waqf property can either be for use or for investment. For instance, you can donate, like the masjid, the jama' is a waqf, but it is waqf to be used. A library is to be used. This is a waqf. Madrasa, is a waqf for use. Or it could be, the waqf property could be a revenue generating asset such as real estate, agricultural land, or any market securities. We come to the third component, the mawquf alayh. The mawquf alayh is the beneficiary of the waqf. Now, beneficiaries are the people who are designated by the waqif, or a certain category of people, whether they are present now or in the future, because the waqf, once made a waqf, it should be waqf forever, and therefore the beneficiaries can change. So it could be, a beneficiary may not even be born now. So a beneficiary may be, again, a natural person, or a juristic person, or a charitable purpose, or a program. You can make a waqf for education, for healthcare, for anything. It could be a program, or for the promotion of Islam, or any legitimate program. So the beneficiary may not necessarily be a human being, or he can even be, for the environment, or for animals, stray cats, dogs, whatever. As I say, the beneficiaries, or the purpose of the waqf is unlimited, really. Anybody, whatever is good for mankind, can be made a mawquf alayh, or a beneficiary of the waqf. By the way, the beneficiaries, in my view, they are, if we look at these five categories, and you ask, which is the most important? Is it the waqif, the mawquf, the beneficiary, the mutawalli, or the waqf deed, or who is the most important, really the heart of the waqf? I would say, some people say, well, the waqif, because he's the one who is donating the property. Another one would say, oh, it is the property. I would say it is the mawquf alayh, the one who is in need. He is the most important, because without a beneficiary, there is there is no waqf. There should be a purpose. There should be a charitable purpose to make a waqf valid. It is the beneficiaries who give the waqf its raison d'etre, its purpose of being a waqf. So beneficiaries are also, the motivation for waqifs to make a waqf, for donors to donate, and they are the people who inspire volunteers' work and so on. So it is the beneficiary, in my view, are the very important component of the waqf. Now, beneficiaries, again, they do not own the waqf property, but they own the benefit arising from it, as long as they remain entitled. So if a poor is a beneficiary, and if he is, not needy anymore, therefore he ceases to be a beneficiary. So long as he is entitled, he is a beneficiary. And the right of the beneficiaries, the legitimate beneficiaries, will be indefeasible, meaning that they cannot be voided, forfeited, or annulled. Now, there's something also about beneficiaries. Knowing who the beneficiaries are can be more complex than what might seem. How the mutawalli or the nazir defines the beneficiary will decide the way he can allocate the waqf usufruct. Sometimes it could be a challenge to prioritize beneficiaries. For example, I'll give an example. Say, if the yield from a waqf is reduced due to a drop of revenue or increase in expenses, such as it might not be possible to provide for all beneficiaries, who should take precedence? Or shall we then distribute, equally whatever, the ghalla is? Or shall we prioritize and say, because there isn't enough money to go to everybody, I will now give those who are most needy, and the others I leave until later. These are decisions which are not easy to answer sometimes, and they could be frustrating to both the beneficiary and to the nazir himself. On the other hand, if, let's say, there is a surplus, okay, should the nazir distribute all to the beneficiaries? Because, as we said, the ghalla, or the return from the waqf, is for the beneficiaries, and therefore why should he keep it? He should give it to them. Or some people say, no, well, he should give them what they need now, and then we will leave the others in reserve just in case there is a drop in future years or whatever. So these are decisions, and different people may have different interpretation on them. Such questions will always prompt us to reflect on a host of issues that confront the nazir in identifying the beneficiaries who are entitled against all other claimants if he is going to disburse the funds fairly and equitably. Now, the other component is the mutawalli or the nazir or the trustee, the manager. Now, he is the custodian. He could be a male or a female. The nazir or the mutawalli is an agent of the waqif because he's acting, as the manager of the property that the waqif has donated. So he holds the title of the waqf property, he exercises legal control, and is bound by fiduciary responsibility and moral obligation to protect and to administer the Waqf for the benefit of the beneficiaries in accordance with the terms dictated by the Waqf in the Waqf deed. It is permissible for the Waqf or for the Nazir of the Waqf. It is permissible for the Waqf to be a Nazir also. I donate and I want to manage it myself. And it is also permissible for the Waqf to be a beneficiary, to also benefit from the Waqf he has donated. This is according to the consensus of Sharia scholars on the Waqf. However, if an independent Nazir is appointed, his relationship vis-a-vis the Waqf should be at arm's length, in that he shall have control over the Waqf assets, the investments-based deed, will help the Nazir to uphold the but there should be, the Nazir, okay, he should have no financial interest in him, because otherwise he'll be conflicted. So he is entitled to a management fee, but not a share of the profit. There are two different things. Okay, he can benefit from the Waqf, but he can take his share as a fee for his management. But he can't consider himself that he is really also a beneficiary like the others. Otherwise, there will be conflict in this. Unless, as I said, the Nazir is also the Waqf, and therefore he has the power to change the Waqf deed. Now, the authority of the Mutawalli to act and make decisions on behalf of the Waqf carries an immense responsibility, and his duties are wider and more onerous than they were assumed to be. Now, the Nazir has to navigate a complex and changing set of financial and legal rules, and he has to grapple with pressure from regulators and stakeholders. We said that the Nazir acts as an agent of the Waqf, but in fact he is a double agent, so to speak, because he is also an agent on behalf of the beneficiaries. He has to protect their rights and so on. Awqaf stakeholders are many and varied. There are beneficiaries, customers, employees, volunteers, local community, government, and other groups with different interests and multiple touch points with the Waqf. So the Nazir cannot shun away from a responsibility, because really everything is his job. Now, this is a big responsibility, and therefore, while a Waqf can be managed by an individual, a human being, man or female, the corporate structure has obvious advantages. The corporate entity, first of all, allows the segregation of duties and the distribution of responsibilities according to the areas of specification. The corporate structure brings in also corporate culture. The corporate culture shows up in the system and the procedures and in the discipline, and the related behavior of people in the organization. However, whether the Nazir is an individual or a board or an authority, the responsibility remains that it has to manage the Waqf, protect its assets, and distribute the benefits in line with the objectives of the Waqf and the conditions of the Waqf. Now, Nazirs are required to comply with both the letter and spirit of the Waqf deed. Now, the importance of the Waqf conditions is talked about a lot because there is one adage in Arabic which says نص شرط الواقف كنص الشارع, meaning that the conditions of the Waqf have the same legal force as the laws of the legislator. This rule leaves very little leeway for the Nazir to originate or innovate because he is bound by the Waqf conditions. And therefore, he doesn't have much room. He doesn't have much wiggle room, as we say. If the Waqf document is silent on a particular issue, or a case arises which justifies an action at variance to the conditions of the Waqf, or if the Nazir is not sure about the most appropriate action to take, then the matter should be referred to a proper authority for an opinion or a decision. The authority usually is the Sharia court or the Sharia Qadi, according to Islamic laws. Then the other component, and put it at the end, is which we touched upon as we discussed, which is the Waqf deed. The Waqf deed is a Sharia compliant legal document that expresses the Waqf wishes regarding the consignment of the donated property and the donation of its usufruct. The Waqf deed is, in essence, it is a one-party contract. Contracts usually, are two parties or more, but a Waqf is a one-party contract because you have contracted with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is, by law, it's considered as a one-party contract, evidencing the transfer of ownership of the asset of the Waqf, the objective of the Waqf, the beneficiaries, and other conditions you have undertook upon yourself. So you made a contract between yourself and Allah that this is what I'm doing. So it is in fact, you can look upon it as contract. Now, the Waqf deed, if it is in writing, it should be written in unambiguous, clear terms so that there will be no misinterpretation or doubt about its objectives and conditions. The first thing that must be considered in any Waqf deed is its goals. If the focus is only on compliance, the Nazir will be restricted to do what is allowed in the Waqf deed. While the Waqf-based deed will help the Nazir to uphold the values of the Waqf. In other words, if the Waqf deed is so strict that it does not leave any way for the Nazir to make a decision outside of what is written, this could be a little bit restrictive to the Nazir to really act in the best interest of the Waqf and of the beneficiaries. Now, we'll go to the conditions of the Waqf property. The Waqf is protected by a whole raft of Sharia rulings. The three most important conditions of the Waqf are there in front of you: irrevocability, perpetuity, and inalienability. These three conditions are somehow interrelated and uphold the meaning and intent of the word Waqf, which means to hold, to stop, and to detain. Now, irrevocability means that once a property is declared and registered as a Waqf, the Waqf cannot at any time get his property back, finish. According to Hanafi scholars, the Waqf is effective and binding as soon as it is declared. Once you declare a Waqf, finish. That is now a Waqf, and according to the majority of Muslim jurists, the property is transferred by the Waqf to the ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this makes it irrevocable. Now, the Waqf laws of many Muslim countries uphold the irrevocability of the Waqf declaration. However, some modern jurists and faqih have allowed what is called the temporary Waqf, where the Waqf may reclaim the asset, provided that his intention is so declared at the time the Waqf is established. Right from the beginning, he could say, I'm making this property a Waqf for a term or until such time or whatever. For instance, I have one house. I'll make it a Waqf until such time as my son gets married, and then he can live in it. Okay. That is a temporary Waqf, and it has been allowed by some jurists. Perpetuity is another condition of Waqf property. The declaration of a Waqf by the Waqf is legally binding and cannot be constrained by time. Once a property is declared a Waqf, it should remain a Waqf forever, or as long as it's according to its useful life. For instance, if I'm donating, I bought an ambulance car, and I said this is a Waqf. So it will remain a Waqf until that vehicle is no longer, is no longer useful. So the Waqf, the perpetuity may be indefinite, or it could be up to the useful life of the property. Now, irrevocability and perpetuity may appear to mean the same thing. Now, irrevocability means precisely that the Waqf has no power to revoke the Waqf created by him, but that does not imply perpetuity or permanency. Scholars who recognize the temporality of a Waqf, i.e. the Waqf for a specific period, they allow the revocation by the Waqf. Inalienability, this is another condition, is a condition that appears to suggest perpetuity. Inalienability is considered by the Hanafi that the Waqf property should not be sold. It's inalienable. It means it cannot be sold, it cannot be pledged, it cannot be gifted, it cannot be inherited, or it cannot be otherwise disposed of. However, if it is absolutely necessary, a Waqf property can be substituted or exchanged for another property of equivalent or better value or better use. The majority of Muslim scholars interpreted the condition of inalienability to mean that the ownership of the Waqf property is vested in Allah Almighty. The three conditions of irrevocability, perpetuity, and inalienability have led over the years to massive accumulation of Waqf property. The emphasis on preservation has become central objective of the Waqf Nazis. Now, notwithstanding the conditions of inalienability, the acquisition of the Waqf land by the state is allowed. You see, if it's, although it cannot be sold or anything, but if the Waqf property, if the government considers that this property has to be removed for what is called maslaha amma, benefit, public interest, then, this inalienability, is overruled. And we saw examples of this. Many Waqf properties were taken over by government to make room for other public facility. We saw in Mecca and Medina, where there were a lot of Waqf property around the Haram. And then the need was there to expand the Haram areas of the Prophet Mosque and of the Holy Mosque in Mecca. The government had to take over these properties, although they were inalienable, but that had, so that they can expand the Haram. And then they gave, substitutes, or they gave the Nazir, another piece of property elsewhere, away, further away, or they gave them the equivalent in cash, so that they can buy a substitute property. So there was compensation somehow. An example, these were live examples in Mecca and Medina. Now, some people argue that the conditions of irrevocability, inalienability, have also negatively affected the development of the Waqf property. And therefore, this has resulted in the accumulation of a number of Waqf land which are undeveloped or underdeveloped. The Waqf has been criticized for locking valuable land in an unproductive system. It looks, that the critics say these conditions, they have really locked a lot of properties to become unproductive. Because why? Because financiers, normally they require the sponsors of the properties, or to pledge these assets as security, as part of the loan security, as part of the package. And if we say that the property is inalienable and it cannot be mortgaged, or it cannot be this, therefore it cannot be pledged, because if it is pledged and there is a shortfall in the repayment of the debt and so on, it will be sold and it will be gone. And therefore, you are trapped in these conditions. But alhamdulillah, there is the need, or the facility of substitution or istibdal of the Waqf, which we will talk about later on in another slide, has opened other possibilities for the Waqf. Now, let me see. I don't know, maybe I think we are now close to 1 hour. If you like me to continue for another 15 minutes, I can do so. Or if you want to stop and have some discussion, we can do that also.
I haven't received any questions so far, so I think we can continue. And
So I'll continue
if anyone
for
has any
another.
questions, you can.
Okay, we can.
Yeah, you
I'll
can continue.
continue.
You
I'll
can
talk.
continue.
Right. I will go over this slide, and it says the nature of the Waqf asset and their selection criteria. Okay. An asset, what is an asset? An asset is defined as any resource of value representing a benefit or a series of benefits accruing to the economic owner by holding or using the asset over a period of time. This is a definition of an asset by the societies of accountants. The Waqf, as we said, is a voluntary donation by the owner of an asset for the benefit of others. The Waqf has the absolute discretion to choose the asset for his Waqf. You cannot come and tell a Waqf, make this asset of yours as a Waqf. It'll have to be, determined by the Waqf himself and should not be coerced into it. He also has the choice of the beneficiary. The Waqf, he can choose the beneficiary or the charitable cause for the Waqf he creates. The Waqf property and the conditions of the Waqf are treated as sacred items of the Waqf. There are, however, conditions for the asset which the Waqf intends to donate. The first condition is that the asset should be owned by the Waqf, and his ownership should be attested legally. Legal ownership means that the owner has alienation rights. It means that he has the right to sell, to pledge, or to donate the asset. It's his asset. He can do with it what he likes. It has no rights attached by other people. Secondly, the asset should be beneficial and useful. And number 3, the asset should be freehold, unencumbered by any lien or mortgage or any form of restriction. It should be typically long-term or a durable asset in order to achieve greater and longer lasting benefits. The rights and benefits associated with asset ownership may differ on whether the asset is owned jointly or exclusively. The Waqf should be both the sole official owner and also the beneficial owner of the asset. It means it's my house, I benefit from it, I can sell it, I can live in it, I'm free to do with it what I like. I can even bring a bulldozer and knock it down. This is absolute ownership. So if an owner holds an asset like this, then he's free to donate it. Asset ownership, by the way, can be of 3 types. Okay, you've got 3 types of ownership. One type is called joint tenancy. And the second is tenancy in common. And the third type is the sole ownership. Now we go through one after the other. Joint tenancy, what does joint tenancy means? Joint tenancy is joint tenancy means that all parties own the entire asset. It means I have a house as joint tenant with my wife, which means I own the whole house, and she also owns the whole house. You see, we all, each one of us has a claim on the whole thing. This is joint ownership. Okay? It's not that I own half and she owns half. No. We both own the whole thing. And this is important, you know, in many English-speaking countries, because then, you know, if a house is owned as joint tenants, according to the joint tenancy laws, it means that if, let's say, a husband and wife own the house and one of them die, then the other one does not inherit. He is the owner. Okay? So this is the importance of joint. So there are no probate duties and no taxes and no this, and that's why in many countries they opt for this, especially for the family homes. This is called joint tenancy. Now, tenancy in common means that each of the parties own a definite share in the property, and the share necessarily have to be. For instance, you know, I can have 30% share, another one can have 30%, and the third one can have 40% share, and therefore we are three of us, or could be more than three, or four, whatever, any number. Now, the tenant in common can sell his share, can get out. Of course, there could be some condition that if you want to get out, you have first to get the right of first refusal by the others, the other common owners, and so on. But that means, you know, a tenant in common can really exit and sell his share, and somebody else will take it over. And of course, the sole property, the sole ownership, which we discussed, it means, you know, one person is the owner, and he has. Therefore, the asset to be donated as a waqf cannot be except property which is owned as sole ownership. Okay, Awqaf assets can also be of three types. You've got religious assets, such as mosques, madrasas, cemeteries, and there could be also social assets, such as schools, universities, hospitals, clinics, orphanages, homes for the elderly, and so on. And there could also be, number three, the revenue-producing assets. Now, Awqaf revenue-producing assets can be real and fixed, such as land and building, farms, orchards, or they can be mobile, such as machinery and equipment, or they can be biological assets, such as cattle, sheep, goats, poultry, or they can be liquid assets, such as cash and Islamic securities, or they can be intangible, as we said, the copyrights, patents, and so on, or they can be cryptic IT programs, fintech applications, and so on. They can also be made as a waqf. Awqaf assets can be divided into three categories. There are restricted assets, which are assets whose returns are for a specific purpose or use. Okay? And this should be specified by the donor. There are temporarily restricted assets. which are initially dedicated to a specific purpose and later to a general charitable purpose. We can start by, say, I'm making this a waqf for this until, for instance, I'll give you an example. There was a waqf for widows whose husbands, were, istishhad, or they were killed during the war. So there were figures. So a waqf was made for those widows. So the waqf was, it was let's say an orchard that the benefit would be for those widows. So the condition was that this it is restricted to those widows so long as until the last widow dies, and then it will be a general charitable waqf. That can happen also. And there are also the unrestricted assets, which are not restricted by any condition of the waqf and may be held for public use, or whose revenue is applied to any charitable purpose deemed appropriate by the Nazir or the Board of Trustees of the Waqf organization. Now, the dispute among jurists on the perpetuity versus the temporality of the Waqf condition is mainly a matter of ijtihad. Now, there are mechanisms by which a perishable and a short-lived asset can be held in perpetuity. For example, a non-human or biological assets such as farm animals, crops and orchards, these assets are self-generating. For instance, if I donated, and this was one waqf in New Zealand where they have, a farm, let's say, of 100 sheep. Okay, these sheep, they are self-generating, which means the corpus of the asset of the waqf was 100 heads of cattle or sheep. But, they can multiply and there'll be more available. But those which are, the assets, these sheep can be replaced over time. So we can really slaughter some, donate them, and we will keep the original from the new generation of the livestock that is available. So these biological assets, they have this quality of being self-generating or regenerating assets. There are also methods by which inanimate assets can be refinanced, can refinance themselves. For instance, if I have a taxi, I made it as a waqf. Okay, therefore, the taxi is being used, and therefore the money that is coming, from the fares that I collect, I can always set aside a certain amount so that I can replace that depreciating asset. So even an inanimate asset, an asset that does not regenerate itself, there are also mechanisms where I can also make it perpetual. So this is the conditions of perpetuity. I think let us stop here. Okay, next time I will continue from the cash waqf and it will take us right through the end of the presentation. Okay?
All right, sure. Actually, there's someone who's asked us a question about cash waqf, so I think I'll ask this question after your presentation on cash waqf, if that's okay.
Okay, we can leave it till next session.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. But
okay, because I will make the
I'll say,
presentation.
okay, okay, all right. So yeah, to the person who asked us the question on YouTube on cash Waqf, we will answer that in the next presentation.
Okay, unless if you want to bear another 10 to 15 minutes, I'll go through this and then maybe he will find the answer.
I think we can. It's entirely up to you and if your
Okay,
availability.
okay,
If that's okay.
fine. I will go through this cash Waqf and maybe it will answer his question
Okay.
as I'm
Sure.
making the
Sure.
presentation on this matter. Okay,
All right.
now
Okay. Sounds good.
cash Waqf. Now, the legitimacy of cash as a Waqf has been subject to controversy among fiqh scholars. Those against the cash Waqf argued that the benefit of cash results from spending it, much like food, whose benefit is derived from consuming it. And therefore, it was reasoned that cash is a wasting resource and therefore does not satisfy the condition of a Waqf asset. Later on, the Maliki scholars, Hanafis and Shafi'i scholars have ruled in favor of the cash Waqf because of the ease of its transfer and its use as a measure of value, a storage of value, and a medium of exchange. So the International Fiqh Academy, in its 19th or in its 15th meeting, which was held in 1998, ruled that the cash Waqf is permissible because it satisfies the Waqf basic condition of holding the asset and spending its usufruct, and that the benefit of cash is derived from the return on the investment of that cash. So cash is recognized as a valuable, investable, convenient, and revenue-generating asset that satisfies the conditions of a Waqf asset. Now, it is easier to process and manage cash than other types of movable or immovable assets. Cash is easy to handle. An important feature of the cash Waqf is its liquidity and the facility it provides for a collective Waqf, whereby any person can become a Waqf by donating any small or large account into a cash Waqf fund. So a cash Waqf can be invested in real estate or revenue generating projects or by way of murabaha or musharaka or anything, any of these modes of financing, and the proceeds are distributed to beneficiaries in according to the Waqf condition. These investments will not constitute the corpus of the Waqf. Okay? They will not constitute the corpus of the Waqf asset, and therefore they cannot be sold. So if I have a cash Waqf and I bought, let's say, a house and I tenanted that house, I took the rent money, I used it for, to satisfy the conditions of the Waqf. This is fine. The house itself is not the Waqf, it is the cash. So if I sell the house, then the Waqf will revert to its original condition of being a cash Waqf. The cash waqf can also be used as for Qard Hasan, a good loan, which helps meeting some necessitous circumstances of people, such as for medical treatment, tuition, fees, marriage costs, or other emergency needs, and then it can be repaid. Now, cash, how do we record the cash, on the books of the Waqf? Cash should be recorded on the day of the receipt at its face value in the local currency. So if I receive a certain amount in Indonesian rupees or in US dollars, it should be recorded in the books at its face value. If the cash is in a foreign currency, it should be recorded at the exchange rate ruling on the date of the receipt. And this value can be adjusted to reflect the value of the foreign currency at the rate ruling on the date we are making our reports. So gains resulting from changes in value can be booked to an exchange equalization reserve. This is an accounting treatment, really, and to be held in reserve so that if the fluctuation goes the other way, it can be really made to re-equalize the waqf to its original value. Now, although cash waqfs are not subject to depreciation or repair like fixed assets, they are, however, exposed to wastage, to loss, to theft, and to decrease in purchasing power due to inflation, and therefore they also need to be maintained and they need reconstruction of some other type, which means, let's say if there is a revenue being generated from investment of the cash waqf, I should allow certain reserves to preserve the value, at least to the percentage of inflation that will depreciate the original cash waqf. Okay, so this is what I have on the subject of cash waqf. I hope that by this, the one who asked, found his answer in what I said. Inshallah, in next session, I will start on the subject of istibdal or substitution and the self-financing of Awqaf assets. Thank you very much.
All right.
And I hope the presentation was clear to everybody. And if there are any questions or any comments, I'm quite happy to hear them. And
Sure.
if not now, maybe next time people can, in the next session, maybe before starting the session, we can entertain any questions on what I presented today.
Right. There's one question about cash waqf. The person is asking, if it is allowed, then is there a need to adjust for inflation?
I just said yes, there is a need to adjust for inflation. Otherwise, the waqf will deteriorate in value. And I mentioned that we should create what we call a waqf equalization reserve, where from the investment that is derived from the investment of that cash waqf, okay, we take a percentage which is equivalent to what is the prevailing inflation rate, so that at least the waqf does not depreciate in value. If we can take more, so that also it may appreciate. So as I mentioned, the cash waqf, it's not like a fixed asset. It's not subject to depreciation or like the fixed asset, but they are exposed also to uh, depreciation of value because of, as I said, it could be inflation, or sometimes, you make a cart hasan by the waqf and people fail to repay you in full, so there is a reduction. As I said, these cash waqfs, they need to be maintained and reconstructed, and this takes some other methodologies of doing so. But definitely, a cash waqf should be, the value of the waqf, of the cash waqf, like all awqaf assets, they should be preserved in value. Okay. طيب, thank you very
Okay,
much.
Jazakallah
And
khair. Yep. So Jazakallah khair, Dr. Hisham, for that extremely informative session. I'm sure we will get more questions once these videos are available for rewatching on the streaming platforms. We can
Inshallah.
discuss these questions in our next session, inshallah.
Inshallah, we'll
Just a
start
note to everyone attending. Yeah. To be eligible for the certificate, you need to confirm your attendance by visiting the link that is being shared right now. Please head over to ibfx.co/attendance and confirm your attendance. Thank you again, Dr. Hisham, and
Thank you.
looking forward to your next webinar with us.
Inshallah. Inshallah. We will start from slide number 9, substitution, till the end of the presentation, inshallah,
Okay.
next time. Okay, brother. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Please wait for an email announcement for the next session dates, and keep a lookout for your certificates.